given access to receive messages of clarity, guidance, and love. As channeler, psychotherapist, and author, Noemi Grace has an intimate dialogue with the divine on your behalf. Lisa Berry intuitively listens and expresses the deep questions on people's hearts and elevates the conversation, while Noemi Grace channels divine wisdom and expansive answers to your deepest questions. Each show's themes are related to self-love, self-healing, relationships, and personal struggles, offers tools that will lead to sacred stability and help you find your best solutions. Join us now as we give you access to angels and grace. Well, hello everyone. Welcome, and hello Noemi. It's lovely to be here with everyone.
Lisa. I love that new intro. I really do. I love how it talks about how you're intuitively listening and elevating the conversation, and it adds an element of what we do, the dynamic that we have here on the show that wasn't in our original show description, our intro to the show. So I love it.
I feel having an introduction, literally, that was, I think that we feel that way in our own lives, right? Like we step out into the world and we're like, all right, did I get the right intro on? Do I have, do I feel the way, am I presenting myself? Am I setting myself up with this foundation? Am I verbalizing, like what you said about even elevating the conversation? Are we showing up in the world the way we want to? And because it will reflect what we're getting back. So I like it too.
And there's no judgment. That's, we'll be talking about that today. If we reflect, if we take a moment to look within and see how we're showing up. Is this how I want to show up? We can shift, we can adjust, we can shift. If we don't get stuck in the judgment, right? If we don't say, I was a little bit irritable today, and here I was planning to be blissful all day and zen and all this, and now I'm irritable and it's like, but I can be blissful. The shift is not as huge as we make it out to be sometimes. Sometimes we can shift pretty quickly if we choose to.
Yes, and you set us up perfectly with that, with mentioning about, that we can shift as long as we don't get stuck. And so we're going to be sharing with everybody today the topic, the theme. Yes, it's about getting stuck, but there are different ways we get stuck, and we seem to have a little bit of help from the lovely archetype called the Saboteur. And I will begin with reading our show description just to let everybody connect with where we're going here. So, stop dissing the Saboteur. It's only trying to protect you. Have you ever felt that someone or something was getting in the way of your happiness? Perhaps you got close to something you really wanted, like building a healthy relationship, having a certain amount of money, or attaining a specific career status, and then you lost it or failed to fully achieve your desire. When disappointing things happen over and over, we start to think that there must be a reason. We might ask ourselves, do I deserve this? Why can't I have this? And whose fault is this? That's my favorite one. No. In our need for answers, we may look for someone to blame. We may also recognize that we are the common element in all those disappointments, as we may judge ourselves as sabotaging our success. We might say things like, this is why I can't, and this always happens, and I'll never have this or be able to do this. And we may blame this on a restrictive force within us that we call the saboteur. But the saboteur has received a bad reputation. It's not trying to punish or ruin our lives. It's actually trying to protect us. In fact, when the saboteur perceives danger in any situation, it does whatever it takes to protect us, even if that means trying to stop us from continuing on our course. It often interprets new opportunities for growth as dangerous. Then it tries to assert itself to stop us, which interferes with fulfilling our dreams. We must learn to recognize this force at work in our lives and to understand that it is its desire to protect us. Then we must also step more fully into our power. In this way, we can co-create with the saboteur and balance its protection with the courage to step out of fear into trusting and manifesting our dreams. Woo!
That came out so powerfully, and whole idea of co-creating with the saboteur. And this topic came out as we were doing last show on the imposter. And I woke up one morning and instead of saying imposter, I was reflecting and I was thinking, and instead of saying imposter in my mind, I was saying saboteur. And I was like, no, not the saboteur. No. Go away. But it didn't go away. It kept coming up. So it's here because the universe, the source, that's whom I talk to a lot. Source wants us to know something different about it, to understand that this is not something to say no, go away to. It's something to understand where it's coming from and why it's there, what it has to offer us, what it's trying to tell us and teach us and show us.
Yes, and it's very different. I'm remembering back in the days, the 90s, when reality TVs would show up with these, just reality shows, and you'd pick your team or you'd end up on a team, and nobody wanted to have somebody who was like known as the saboteur. They're going to sabotage me. I mean, that was how you were going to lose at this game or the life. And so I think we often feel like, I do, is when I think about a saboteur, I think somebody's out to get me, and I have to be on guard, always looking out, never at ease, never in the flow, because I'm trying to protect myself. But when we're mentioning in the show description what we're going into today is, in fact, it is there to protect us. So it's very different than that reality show saboteur.
Well, and when we judge ourselves as sabotaging, I mentioned to you, Lisa, I never liked this archetype because I didn't like the idea that there's this part of me that just wants to ruin my life. That's the way I saw it. I'm sure the archetype was never intended to be seen that way, but there's this part of me that just wants to ruin my life, wants to mess things up when they're going good, and I don't really want to see myself that way. So I decided, no, I'm beyond that. I'm not going to even look at that. And
beyond a saboteur.
And that's probably, maybe I could share my story from yesterday. If
yes,
that
please.
Seems good. So yesterday, we had a nice snowstorm on Friday, and Saturday we spent the day, well, not the whole day, but a good chunk clearing it out. And so yesterday was like a beautiful day, and it wasn't too cool, and I thought, I'm going to go in the woods and walk in the woods, and maybe I'll snowshoe, and I started to think about snowshoeing, and I became really reluctant to go into the woods, a little, very kind of on the fence about it. And I love going in the woods. I've been in the woods and so many times, hundreds of times by myself. And I realized that I had nobody to go with. I'm going by myself. And then I started telling my husband, I'm really sad that you can't go with me, that I have to go by myself. Everybody else has somebody to go with. And I was really in this poor me place. And it wasn't, and I had channeled the pre-channeled message, which is going to talk more about this, before I went for this walk the day before. And as I'm leaving, I realized that I wasn't feeling sad and lonely about going alone by myself. Ooh, I'm hearing some feedback here. I wasn't feeling sad and lonely to go by myself. It was that I was feeling a little bit unsafe. I had fallen snowshoeing last year. My loving mother said something like, I was really worried when you told me about it. I couldn't believe you didn't break a bone. At this point in life, you could be breaking bones. And when you fall, and I thought, oh no, I might break a bone and I'll be out in the woods by myself. But it was, and so I realized that I felt like I was sabotaging what I liked to do, would love to do, is go out there. But I had so much reluctance because I was afraid that I was going to fall in the woods, break a bone, and be there all by myself with nobody to help me. And I did have a cell phone, so I could get help. And I realized, the saboteur is here. It's trying to protect me, but I'm feeling like I'm feeling like poor me. I'm alone in the woods by myself. And you wouldn't believe how many people were alone by themselves in the woods yesterday. I was just laughing how the universe kept bringing all these people, and mostly women by themselves. Usually I don't see women by themselves. And but I had such a lovely time, as I always do. And it was so fascinating to me because I was really caught up in this poor me thing, feeling lonely. I was caught up in that whole thing because the saboteur showed up telling me not to go, and I'm thinking it's about me feeling lonely, but I don't feel lonely in the woods. I love being in the woods by myself and with friends and family, but, and it was just, it was so fascinating to realize, oh, there it was showing up, trying to protect me. But I'm seeing it as you're making me into a victim, and I don't like being a victim. So it was so amazing that it showed up, and I was able to see it and see it playing out in my life and go, I'm going in the woods and I'm going to have a great time. And I did. It was beautiful.
I love that.
So
it's so. I am so appreciative that you were able to share that story, because, these are the subtle things that happen in our lives every day. And when we can, I almost think that's the toughest part. Challenge is to recognize it. And something that you were saying there is because of your mother saying something she's not planting seeds, she's just sharing her perspective, her fears, but then. Does the saboteur have its little antenna up all the time to hear other people's messages of danger? And then it's, subconsciously goes, ooh, they mentioned that. Now that would not be fun. That's a possibility. Okay, we're not going there. So then it's the not to go and don't do it. Yesterday, funny you said that yesterday. I had that car accident in November. I wanted to go to the grocery store to get cat food yesterday because that's the only thing that drives me to go to the grocery store. And my boyfriend said, you know what? The weather is not very good. And I was like, well, I'm just going to get ready in case. And then I started thinking, oh, the weather's not very good. I shouldn't go. I ended up, it was clear enough when I went. Cats have their food. We're good. And the same thing, I thought, because you told your story just before that, Noemi, to me, that I went, I don't want to be silly and drive in bad road conditions. But I did think, wait a second. I've been driving forever. If I see that it's not okay, then I won't. But if I see that it is, I have to be really, what would you call that word? Discerning, yes.
Discerning, so important.
Yeah. So discerning,
right? Because sometimes the protector is telling us something. Say it was a little icy out yesterday, and you're wanting to go get the cat food, or so you want to be discerning that yes, this is not a condition that's good for me to be driving, but maybe it's coming down with a few flakes, and you're discerning, yeah, I can drive in this. So yeah, it's trying to saboteur, really the protector is trying to protect us, but we got to discern what's it trying to protect us from? How real is that? Right? Because my mother made that comment, and I love you, Mom. I'm so grateful that my mom is still here with me, and I love you, and all of that. But she made that comment, and it was in the back of my mind. It never occurred to me when I fell, and there were plenty of people in the woods, and I went down. I went and it never occurred to me that my hip might have been broken or something. So it was. I was fine. I twisted my ankle. That I was aware of. But, so it's so interesting how these things, and I was feeling poor me, and I would have stayed poor me all day probably if I didn't, well, maybe not because I have a little awareness, but I would have stayed poor me for longer and maybe felt sad that I didn't go as the sun started to set when I realized, oh, it's protection. It's not poor me, but it was interesting because I felt like the saboteur was trying to use whatever means to get me to understand, to get me to change my course of action, right? As we talked about it in the show description. So it's true when you're going to be lonely out there and you're going to feel, because I don't like feeling lonely. Not that anybody does, but you're going to feel lonely. You're going to feel bad if you go. Everybody's going to be all coupled up and paired up. And
yes. Well, you know what you said?
All by yourself. Yeah.
This is absolutely perfect. So I know we're going to do a little bit of a crazy order, but because you just said, I didn't understand why. So I know the channeled message that I'm going to ask you, even though when we come back from commercial break, we'll have you read the pre-channeled.
The pre-channeled first.
But the
yes.
pre-channeled.
Okay, so.
But I want to put out the question that just came to me. I absolutely know this. We have to ask this. When we don't understand or agree with our saboteur, because agreeing's a big thing. Okay, so the saboteur doesn't want me to fall from, the sky because I'm so close to this promotion or this amount of money that I could make, this contract that's going to go through. I'm speaking really financially. I can feel this. And so they, first of all, don't understand, well, why wouldn't I be safe having all this money? And I don't agree with you. I really want this money, this relationship, this happiness. But so that is going to be, I already know, that's the question that I'm hearing loud and clear.
The discernment of what's really going on here. What's really going on. And so And loneliness can be, it's part of the human condition. We've all experienced it from time to time. But when that can be really suck you in, that could be a trap. So I could have been in this. Why am I feeling lonely? I'm connected to the vine. I have family. I have friends. I have a husband. All of these things. I could be in that space, but get caught up with the loneliness aspect without realizing, it's not about loneliness at all. It's about I'm afraid that I might get hurt, and I'll be alone if I get hurt. And so, it sneaks in. And it creates this feeling.
And you just said that because if it's about money, let's just say it was, I could make all this money, but then I'd be alone because somebody won't accept me, or they won't like that I did this, or that I have to work too much or too little, or, have a different schedule. So this is the key here with the saboteurs. I love this when we don't agree with it. So I know it's a commercial break. I was not necessarily not agreeing with it. It's the key is to really ask what's really going on here. And I've learned to do that. Like if I feel angry, something, something, I'm somehow angry about something. Like, what's really going on here? Why am I angry? Yes. What's really triggering this anger? What's really going on? Because a lot of times there's nothing to do about being angry. It's like, I feel unimportant, or I feel, uncared for, or unloved, or whatever. And it's not anger at all. So being inquisitive with our emotions, with our thoughts, with our boundaries is really good for us. I like that. And I love the word inquisitive. So what we'll do, we'll let everybody know. We'll go to commercial break. When we come back, we're going to have Noemi read her pre-channeled message and then go. And that might actually kind of beef up some of these questions, but I can see it being there. Inquisitive, understanding, agreeing with, and what happens when we don't, and how do we do that turnaround, that shift. So come on back to Access to Angels and Grace. Mm-hmm.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes. Co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
My loves, you're here as a soul-led leader to transform this world through the sharing of your passions and gifts. You are here to be in your warrior of light and align your business with your highest self. I'm Rosalind Fung of the show Activate Your Soulgasmic Business. Let's elevate your business to the next expansive level. I invite you to flow into a business soul alignment discovery call with me at rosalindfung.com. That's ROSALYN, fun as in have some fun, FUNG, and let's see how I can best hold space for you to align your highest self, magnetize your dream clients, and monetize on your soul mission. I can't wait to connect.
COVID-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
Do you feel like your emotions are all over the place? That's normal during this abnormal time. There are a number of ways to cope. Maintain a healthy routine, get enough sleep, eat nutritious food, and exercise at least 30 minutes each day. Schedule some time to talk with a friend or family member. And remember, you can always take a few deep breaths to feel more centered.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us here. We just access to Angels and Grace really is access to not just clarity and messages, but access to exploring and kind of, I feel like it's like a trial run. Like we get to do, it's like before the actual play, we get up on stage and do our, what's that thing called you do before, like a practice. It's our practice run, and we get to explore and be inquisitive and get some guidance and just some training just before we really step out. That's what I feel like access to Angels and Grace is, Noemi.
Well, it's also interesting how you and I volunteer to be that sort of have the experience, so we have something to share. So as we start to after each show, we get together a few days later and reflect and offer what's in each of our awareness to come up with our next topic, and something always gels in it, and then we start to write the show description, and as we do, we know that we're volunteering ourselves to be of service. Yes. To have the experience that we're sharing. But since the experience is always something uplifting, it's yes. Last time we had a different spin on the imposter, and this time it's a different spin on a different understanding of a spin. It was a loving, kind, loving understanding of the imposter, and now we're bringing the same thing with the saboteur. So we're volunteering ourselves, but we know that we are going to be served. Yes. Even though we're in service, we're going to receive such loving, compassionate care from the universe in doing so.
That was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And on that note, why don't we see what the universe's loving, compassionate care in this message? And it really, it opened my heart, this, what Lisa calls the pre-channeled message, which then I sit down usually the Saturday before the show and ask the divine how they want to start this conversation. And so that's the further development. Then we bring that here and we go from there. So here's what they have to say. Be of service to yourself in your dreams. We, as your divine source, are so in love with all of you. You can't imagine how much we love you. We want to help you to stop struggling or doing what you call sabotaging. When you engage in behavior which in retrospect you call sabotage, you're simply operating out of fear, seeking to protect yourself and those whom you love from further hurt. And you have all been hurt and wounded. There is not a human among you who is unwounded. Yet wounding is part of your growth process. You would not put your children in a bubble to protect them against scrapes and bruises. You understand that they will receive some injuries, both physical and emotional. And you will be there to soothe, nurture, and help them heal. You understand that to overprotect can cause more harm than the bruises experienced along the way. Yet when it comes to your perception of your own safety, many of you have learned to operate from fear. The more bruises and wounds you've experienced, the harder it is to let yourself be with new experiences without contracting or controlling. You control because you don't want to contract. You want to be able to enjoy something new that is outside your comfort zone, and you think that the best way to be safe is to control. Some of you have even concluded that the only way to be safe is to control. So you attempt to control at every opportunity. Control itself is about protection, which you feel is necessary. You think you will feel good if everyone and everything operates the way you want them to. But life doesn't operate that way. Yet you can become overwhelmed when you perceive that you can't control because you've been programmed to expect pain, suffering, and even failure. Thus, when you can't control enough to feel safe enough, you unconsciously, without awareness, behave in a manner and do things in a way that creates the very pain, suffering, and failure that you expect and are trying to avoid. You say hurtful things to those you love and quit things you want to do when you're afraid you will fail. You create the pain you so desperately want to avoid, not because you hate yourself or want to suffer, but because you don't realize that you're choosing from a fear that's growing inside of you. Afraid to be the victim of someone or something's hurtful action towards you, you create hurt for you and for others too. This is not because you don't want to be with someone who loves you or to be successful in a bigger way. It's because fear wants to recreate safety for you. And the only way it knows to do that as fear grows bigger is to bring you back to where you were before you expanded. Before you were in a new relationship, job, or opportunity that caused you to both expand and want to contract. Fear creates the contraction and the desire to contract further. Motivated by fear, what you choose eventually leads you to contraction, back to the old and familiar. Yet, you arrive there more wounded, more doubting yourself, and more convinced of your inability to create what you desire in your life. What's the solution? It's not to contract and live small. It's also not to challenge yourself to do what terrifies you. It's to switch your source and motivation from fear to love. Can you love the part of you that's scared and wants to contract? Yes, you can if you consciously practice that. You must learn to recognize the desire to contract when you are in great discomfort as your natural programmed response, like the turtle retracting into its shell or the ostrich burying its head in the sand. Recognize that when you want to contract, and understand that you're being motivated by fear. Consciously choose to love yourself in that situation, in that moment. Ask yourself, what is here that I can love about this? What is lovable about me and what's happening in my life? What can I feel good about here now? Start to switch your perspective, and what do you see? You may see something very positive, like a partner who's so kind that you feel uncomfortable with their kindness, or that you have been valued and promoted on your job, but you're scared of failure. You may see that you've stepped into something new and challenging, and that is something to be proud of. Practice knowing where your motivation comes from and changing your perspective from fear to love. While you're at it, love yourself too, and especially love the part of you that is scared and wants to contract or control. You are not sabotaging your life. You are trying to make it less scary. Yet the only thing you need to change when you're fearful is your perspective, your perception. Practice seeing with eyes of love, then everything looks different, and you'll see different options and become much more comfortable with your discomfort, trusting more and more willing to be of service to yourself and your dreams. Choose from love, and you will never sabotage yourself or need to contract or control to survive your life. In great love for you, we are your greatest cheerleaders, and we are complete, yet ever expanding. Namaste.
There's so I have so many little goodies in that one, but I do really love. Switch your source of motivation from fear to love, and practice knowing where our motivation comes from. There are those two motivation things, because and I'm going to share this for all of us, people who maybe are uncomfortable with too closeness and touch in any of sort. I myself, I've noticed something. My source of motivation. I always say, oh, no, I don't like to be touched. I don't want to hug and snuggle and all those things. And my boyfriend will say, come just sit on the couch with me. I'm like, no, I have my own couch. I'm going to get up and down all the time. You don't want me there. I'll just jiggle you around and stuff. but really the motivation is coming from as in the pre-channel message, your past experiences and your results from the past. So me in the past have been felt like I've been in prison, like, oh my gosh, now I'm sitting beside this person. I can't move. I can't fidget. I can't get up to talk to the cats or do anything. And so I have turned this, my saboteur is protecting me, and it's coming out as like my motivation. No, I'm going to be up and down, blah, blah, blah. Like it's being honest, but it's kind of being fluffy around the edges and not owning where that fear, because you talked so much about fear. Where fear, because he said choosing from a fear growing inside of you. I was choosing from a fear growing inside of me, going, oh, no, I can't be captured. I don't want to be imprisoned there on that couch. So it's, and it really can control your, and that affects the relationship, right? Like,
of course, they're thinking, it does.
Yeah.
And, so it damages the intimacy in the relationship. Yes. So to recognize that the reason you are wanting your own space and feeling not so safe outside of that own space for yourself is because you have been smothered, you have been controlled, you have been unable to freely move about in relationships before, which is not the relationship you're in right now. And so honoring both yourself and your boyfriend in finding more balance with that.
Yes, and that's the switch. I just love this. Yeah, I love it. Switch your source of motivation from fear to love. And if we can ask ourselves, and that's going to go with one of the channel questions, I think, is ask ourselves, okay, that's a tough one to say. If right now you can sense, anybody listening, if you can sense that you are choosing something out of fear right now, because we can feel that, that's a vibration. And then to say, all right, what is the fear? And so there's where could we have some help from source here through you, Noemi, is when we've said, what's going on here? And we're like, ooh, I'm choosing from fear. Okay, but I don't understand why I'm afraid, or I don't, get it. Like I don't get, I'm being triggered and I get it. So I'm fearful, but now what? We need some
Yes.
help with our steps.
Yes, yeah. So first, right, you have that awareness and you realized, this is, you could listen to yourself in your thoughts saying, oh no, you might, you won't be able to leave. You're going to be trapped. And recognizing that that's not the reality now, but that's the reality we're creating, but that's not what's really happening here and now. And so being able to understand where it's coming from, but be curious enough, right? That inquisitive enough to go, okay, how come I'm feeling this? Where is this coming from? And opening up to be willing to experience something different. Okay, this is where I'm coming from, but what about coming from somewhere else? What would love say here? If I'm coming from love, what does love want to choose? Does love want to be in its bubble? Maybe, probably not all the time. Maybe some of the times. But, does love want to always be in that bubble and you stay there, I stay here?
Right, yeah. What would love choose? What would love say? What would love do? And it's not that sure is coming from protection is a little different. Protection comes from love, so the saboteur is coming from love, but maybe not delivering it in a way that allows you to grow and expand.
Yes, the motivation is love, but what gets awakened in us is fear because of that protection, right? Don't put your hand on the hot stove. Oh, you're going to burn yourself. Oh, don't touch that. Oh, don't ride that bike. It's too big for you. You're a little girl. All of those things, oh, you're going to fall if you go down that big bike. All of those messages come from love. Protection comes from love, but they instill fear because it's as a way to keep you safe. But it also keeps you small. And it keeps you not experiencing all of that, the wealth of riches on every level that's available.
Oh, I like that one. Now I know we're pushing it, and maybe we would be a smidgy late for commercial.
Oh yeah, we are really chatting today. But let's see. Okay,
I think we have so much
a minute late. All right,
so
quick.
Let's go
give me the
divine
question.
So the next one was, when we ignore the saboteur and we fight it and we want to prove it wrong, how do we stop the momentum of rebelling against the saboteur? There we go.
Okay, you want that one rather than the one about understanding and the...
I feel like we're there.
All right, we'll see what they have to say.
Okay,
all right.
yeah, well, let's.
How about that? We'll just turn it over to the divine. Okay, so if this is your first time listening, I just take a second to grab a little water and get silent for a minute, and not a minute, a couple seconds, and turn it over to the divine. Hello, divine. So grateful for your presence here and what you have to say. I'm eagerly anticipating that you're going to say something yummy and helpful for all of us. So thank you. And we are grateful for this opportunity to share. We see you not only doing the things you call sabotage, but then beating yourself up by saying, you're sabotaging your life. I'm sabotaging my life. You're beating yourself up and others up instead of taking that moment to pause and reflect. You are not trying to ruin your lives. There's not a part of you that's trying to ruin your lives, as Noemi Grace said. But there is a part of you that is fearful, and that is understandable based on your past. And so many of you, based on your past, have developed great fear. And the fear is linked to protection, is linked to taking care of you so that you are not hurt again. And it is important to understand when that protective mechanism is in place, when that has switched on like the light switch, and now it is on. It is on, and it's blasting you with every possible way to keep you safe and to keep you protected. And understanding that that protective mechanism is on, and does it need to be on at this moment? Is that what is serving the situation and especially you best? Does this serve me best? Does this serve my life best? A lot of times that protective mechanism is about fear. It is about retracting. It is about keeping yourself in a small, safe place. And yet you will feel so unfulfilled in that place because there is so much more to life that's available for all of you. But yes, you must get out of that small, safe place and venture out, knowing that the ultimate protection is always there from source, from us. We are always there. The ultimate protection is there. And you also need to trust your own protection, your own ability to protect yourself. Now, if you are in an unsafe place, in an unsafe time of life, in an unsafe relationship and so forth, then you may need to go through life contracted to protect. But also consider, how do you move on from there? How do you get yourself to safety? So rather than spending your whole life contracted in protection, imagine the turtle in the shell forever. It would starve. It can't eat in the shell. It needs to put itself out, pull its head out and its legs and move around, get some food. And so you in the shell forever is not, you contracted for the rest of your life is not healthy, and it is not safety. It is suffering. It is damaging, and it limits your life so much, and it makes it so unfulfilling. So if you are in an unsafe place, recognize the need to get to safety and start to talk to those that can help you, and start to talk to us. We can help you, and start to make a plan and start to listen to your inner voice, which will help guide you to safety. And now that we will assume from here on that you are in safety. And if you are in safety, we have much more to say. But we're also aware that there is a commercial break. Oh, I guess so. And so we will continue immediately after commercial. Okay. We will continue the rest of this download. Perfect. In great love. We are not complete, but we are complete at the same time. Namaste. Wow, that was like 5 minutes. It went so fast.
I love it. The first and only time I think you'll get to say we are not complete, but complete. All right, we'll be right back after the commercial break, guys.
Oh, gosh.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation, and let's magnetize and monetize.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Oh, well, welcome back, and we are going into part 2, the extended version of the
yes,
freshly
indeed.
channeled message. So we'll let you get back
freshly
into
channeled. Okay. Yummy. So, yeah, that time happened so quick. So I'm going to dive back in and let the divine continue and source share with us. Okay, for if we are in a safe place, and what do we do now? We are grateful to continue and to be able to say this in 2 parts if necessary. And yes, we are complete and we are always expanding. And we are grateful, as we said. So what we want you to know is that it is okay. It is not bad that you are finding yourself in the protective mechanism activated. It's not a bad thing. It is not a thing that you should not do. We never see you that way. And we want you to stop seeing yourself that way. That way you can be more curious. You can be more inquisitive, as Noemi Grace said. You can allow yourself to look at what's going on. If you judge it as bad, you're going to want to push it away instead of embracing it and saying, oh, protective mechanism is activated. What's going on? What has activated this protective mechanism for me? Understanding that protective mechanism is not a bad thing. It is a kind thing. It is a generous thing, but it can limit you. So understanding where it comes from. So first understand after you have taken care of listening to the protective mechanism and become safe in your life, understanding that is going to get triggered in all kinds of situations. Some that do actually present some level of unsafety and some that don't, but there is a trigger associated with some past wound that shows up, and that protective mechanism is activated. And understand, oh, the protective mechanism is activated. What is the source? What is the cause of this? Show some interest. Show some interest. So many of you have developed the habit to not look because you're fearful of looking. You're not inquire because you're fearful of the answers. And yet, the answers will liberate you. You know, Noemi Grace's story from yesterday, when she looked and she realized that it was not about being alone. It was about being afraid of being injured while alone. Now she felt so much liberated from that fear of the victimhood that she was in for a while there. As you all are, victim is such a ingrained concept, is an ingrained experience in the humanity right now, and you all see yourselves as victims without even trying. And so recognize, oh, well, the protective mechanism has been engaged many times. It is for fear of victimization. It is fearful. You are fearful that you will be victimized because you were victimized in the past, or someone you knew was victimized in the past, or someone you knew told you that you might be victimized. Somebody told you might get hurt. And you have taken that on. And the past experience may have told you that you could get hurt. And you took that on. And you took that on and marched forward in life with it. So understanding where it comes from simply by sitting with it and listening. Okay, the protective mechanism is here. What's going on? Talking to that part of you that has triggered that protective mechanism and listening. You all have the ability to do this. You do not need to have some kind of certificate in channeling. You all have the ability to listen to that inward, to listen inside and discover what is going on inside, and to free yourself through that discovery of what is going on. It is so important. And so be willing to sit and listen and open up to hear what is being presented to you. If you listen, you will have answers. If you are willing to listen, you will get answers. And then with those answers, you are now armed with the ability to make a different choice if that is a better choice for you. To understand, asking yourself also, what does love choose here? What is it if I see this with eyes of love, if I am standing in love, if I am living in love, if I am walking in love, what do I choose here? Understanding that choice, there's so much more available choice for you. But yet when you choose, when the protective mechanism comes on, it is causing you to choose as you've chosen in the past. It is causing you to do the same old thing and be on autopilot. And so becoming more conscious and more aware in the moment of what is the best choice for me here now. And you can choose something you've never chosen before. It may feel scary, but it will bring you into greater manifestation of your dreams and greater fulfillment of who you are, if that is what really resonates with you. Obviously, not all choices will do that. And so being more willing to see what else is available and more willing to step out of where you've been and step into your power and into more of you and show up in the world like that. And choice by choice, step by step, you will transform your life and you will look back and say, oh, that's how I used to choose. And I'm choosing differently now. And you will love yourself even more when you choose from love. And we are always loving you in great love. We are complete. Namaste.
It's very empowering, that was. Really encouraging and empowering, and to the point where, many of us, this is my favorite thing there. We don't need a certificate in channeling. We all have the ability to listen and get answers. And Noemi, what's so funny is that, I have some of my favorites who I listen to, and of course I listen to them not wondering what's going on. I actually listened to this to see how right I am. Like, oh, that's what's going on. They're so right. I was right. And I was like, yeah, but wait a second. It's because I have been listening and I am getting answers. So that's an interesting thing to be brought up, is that I think, what is the thing that you think most people, are they not, that's stopping them from listening? Is it because they're not making the time, or they don't have the belief in themselves, or they just don't have the experience or practice?
Well, in the channeled message, there was a piece about that I'd call that sometimes we don't want to ask the question because we're afraid of the answer. We're afraid to hear. We don't want to look. We're afraid of what we're going to see. And so, because we've been programmed to believe that there is something in us that is less than good, and so wounded and yes, while we're wounded, we still can look inside and see all the beauty that's there, and we can see the power that's there alongside with the wounds, and it's the whole picture. But if we come from woundedness, we're going to be different, in a different place than if we come from that power.
Yes, and you know what? You just made me be very aware and reminded me of when we can also at times choose to, we kind of use the saboteur. Like, there's actually, I can see this now, where we go, we have I think it's called a scapegoat, but I don't know, where we can blame, we can say, oh, no, that's my saboteur, where we actually ally and use our saboteur to get us away. Like, we think, oh, we're the victim and perhaps we're afraid of this, so now we think, but my saboteur said this, and I've decided and always made this decision, so I'm going to have to do it always. But you, in that channel message there, it was giving us permission to choose something differently than we have.
Yes, and there was a piece about, I don't always remember all the words, but there was a piece about a lot of times when we're choosing in that protective mechanism place, from that protective mechanism that there's the awareness that's there. Yes. We're going to be trying to prevent ourselves from being victimized or protecting from being, because we've been victimized before. And so that victim consciousness
at least
is the opposite of awareness, because of really what's going on. Allowing ourselves to just ask that question, what's really going on here? What's going on?
Is there benefit to asking, if somebody's very new to this, super new, and they think, I'm going to try this. I'm going to give this a try out. Noemi and Lisa were talking about it, and they say, where is the saboteur showing up in my life, or is that too much of a question? Maybe it's like, where am I choosing from fear and not love, or where in my life am I safe to make different choices?
So my perspective on this, and this is sort of the way I work with clients as well, is like, things will show up. So, and then go with what shows up. Kind of like they do for us when we choose a topic. Things show up. So I generally don't ask that big kind of question, where am I, where is the saboteur showing up in my life? But you can. I like to work with what's going on in the present. That's how I work as a therapist and soul healer. And so I wait for something to show up, but I will. But what I will do is put out an intention to the universe. Please show me where the saboteur is showing up in my life, and then I just release it. And then I go through my life, and then the protective mechanism. Oh, I like how they called it a protective mechanism. I'm going to call it that from now on.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, look at this is showing up. How come I'm feeling so sad and lonely about going into the woods, and all of that, and being able to look at things, choose to look at them when it shows up. So I personally, again, as a healer, I discourage digging. Things bubble to the surface. Things show up. They are going to show up no matter what, especially if you want to know. Okay, I want to know how the saboteur is showing up in my life. You let that go, the universe, and leave it in the hands of the universe to orchestrate something that's going to point it out.
Oh, I love that. That was very gentle and loving. Yes, I actually imagined, like, whatever's ready to come up from the surface. I imagine, like, the water, the ocean or something, whatever's ready to surface, it's ready. It's there. It's so easy to grab. You don't have to go digging. And so if it is ready, and if you start looking in this big ocean, the surface, now we're looking, there's something that comes up, and now we can just pluck it out should we want it.
Yeah. Things will rise to the surface. So there's so much to work with in our lives. That's why I don't see the need to dig. If something big is controlling our lives, we don't have to dig. It's going to come up and come into our relationships, come into our choices, and go with that. There's always something that we can work with that's present.
And I love that there's a trust element there, because as we trust, that the thing will reveal itself, the thing that can serve us, if we are inquisitive enough, and if we are partnering, as our show is titled, we want to stop dissing, it's there to protect us. If we can co-create with the saboteur and allow what it is protecting us from to surface, and then be open to choosing from love there as opposed to fear.
Yes. Allowing it to surface, inquiring, looking at it, asking questions. That was one of the things in my book, that an intimate dialogue with God, the miraculous power of unconditional self-love. There's a statement in there that I found interesting when I channeled it. It said, the journey to self-love starts with asking yourself better questions. And I thought, what? No more, why is this happening to me? And how come I never? And how, the saboteur kind of questions. No more of that. But asking, what do I see when I look at this from love? What do I choose when I choose from love? It's like,
that's just, I actually can see where that showed up in my life just recently, and I love that. I think that's so helpful. It's asking better questions. Yeah, and better, just to quickly, we'll have you define better, more better coming from love.
Okay. Yes, coming from love, aligned with love, okay? Aligned with love, aligned with kindness, compassion, all these attributes that are connected to love. So rather than judgment, rather than blame, rather than victim consciousness, so that alignment with love and compassion and acceptance, yeah.
That was beautiful. Actually, I think that would be the perfect thing to leave everybody with. And good timing, too, is when you're, this is a beautiful intention to ask better questions. And how to do that is to align with love, kindness, compassion, rather than judgment, blame, and victim mentality, consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's all that awareness, of recognizing when you are in that place. When you feel icky inside, you're somewhere in that judgment, blame, victim trifecta there, And so, okay, so I'm not seeing from love. I'm not choosing from love. What does it look like if I turn and look at this from love? Right? It's like Wayne Dyer, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change,
Yes.
So.
Yes, it's so beautiful. And I can feel there being a show on how do we see this horrible thing that we are really feeling. We are really judging, we are blaming, we are feeling very victimized, and we want to come from there because that's where we can, but how do we do? I can feel there being in the future something around that. So,
that sounds good to me. I always love these topics. Yeah.
Yes. Well, everybody,
Yes,
we hope
thank
that you are able to diss this saboteur and just see where it is trying to protect you. Ask the better questions. Connect with us either on Facebook, Noemi Grace or Lisa Berry, or leave a comment or message here on OMTimes on our Access to Angels and Grace page. Thank you so much, Noemi, for offering your service and your gifts to us.
And you too, Lisa.
Oh, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll see you in March. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye.